Sometimes a book finds you when you're mending, not just your body, but your heart. When the ache of recovery opens a door you didn't expect. Now, I've got an author I'd like you to meet who turned that moment into a witty, raw, and surprisingly tender chronicle of healing and self-discovery through Shakespearean sonnets and unapologetic honesty. Stick around because you'll not only find out more about this book, you'll learn more about the author herself and the writing journey she took to create it.
Welcome to A Book Finds You podcast. This week's guest is Liza Achilles. Join us as she shares the inspiration behind her book, along with her writing process, routines, and challenges. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, Rob Jellis.
Today's guest, Liza Achilles, is the author of Two Novembers, a memoir of love and sex and sonnets, published by Beltway Editions in 2024. Her writing has appeared in Exacting Clam, Tofu Inc. Arts Press, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, and the Washington Independent Review of Books, and her blog for the discerning reader at lizaachilles.com features great modern books. She lives near Washington, D.C. and works as a freelance writer, editor, blogger, literary speaker, graphic designer, and web designer. Happy to have you with us and welcome to the show, Liza.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm really excited to be here, and I was excited to meet you at the Maryland Writers Association conference.
That's where we meet. That's called networking, and that's where Liza and I met. And I was getting ready to speak, and Liza was going to be speaking sometime after me, so we were sort of comparing notes. And I twisted her arm a bit, and I said, "We got to get you on the show." And so here we are. Nice to finally have you on. All right, judging by the opening. Sounds like normally I ask people, how did this book find you? But judging by this opening, it sounds like this kind of sprang to life in a physical therapy practice or office. Kind of walk me through how this book found you.
Yeah, that's right. I had suffered a computer overuse injury in both arms, and I had developed tendinitis, or it's also called repetitive strain injury. And I had a really amazing physical therapist. He succeeded in healing me. And I also happened to fall in love with him. And I didn't want to tell anyone because it was super embarrassing. I felt like it was a cliche, like, ooh, I fell in love with my trainer. And so at the time, my marriage was falling apart. And I ended up going to a divorce attorney, and I gave him my deposit. And then the very next day, I was like, you know what? I need to get my feelings out somehow about my physical therapist. I can't tell anyone because I'm too embarrassed. So I'm just going to secretly write poems. I decided on Shakespearean sonnets because that's my favorite book ever. And it all went from there.
When did you realize, I mean, as we kind of travel through this, when did it dawn on you that this could be a book that where you're going from, okay, I've got to get my feelings out. This is deeply sensitive and personal. And maybe I have something that I can share with others. I mean, that's quite a 180 from keeping it very quiet to saying, here, everybody, look.
Yes, indeed. And there is a specific point in my poetry, and it's around sonnet 20. And you can see the lines in my poetry where I'm writing and I'm addressing my words to my physical therapist. And I say, hey, I just had this idea, which I literally just had. What if you show this to a literary agent? And of course, back then, I didn't know that new poets don't generally get literary agents. But that was my way of saying, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I do want to go public with this. And when I ultimately made that decision, I did have to go back and change identifying details because I wanted to protect the identity of that man.
Yeah. I love hearing that, by the way, sonnet 20. People think, wow, that's sort of random. I think not only does a book find us, but usually there's a moment in a book that's deeply personal to all of us authors that kind of kicks the book off, but it's not page one. That's the thing. It can be page 40. It can be, I can tell you one of my books, there's just a kind of obscure piece in there about, is it mean or is it merciful when we persuade somebody, when we try and influence their decisions? And I had written that as a blog some years earlier, and it was very emotional for me. And then when I decided, hey, this could be a book, as the story went, that didn't come till 100 pages into the book. But I know as the author, that was the
Mhm.
first domino. So when you said that to me, I'm smiling because I think that's actually very common among authors. But most readers will never know that unless we talk about it on a show somehow. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's yeah, yeah. Like I said, mine is it mean or is it merciful? It doesn't have a sonnet name. But it's a feeling and it's strong.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so uh, you write about love and desire and vulnerability in a very honest way. That's one thing I can remember from meeting you was just so you know what you put off, which is a high degree of honesty, kind of just almost a raw honesty. Um,
Aw, thanks so
well,
much.
well, it's good. It really is good. You're a very authentic person. We all want to be, but it's one of those things, sort of like singing, you can either hit the note or you can't. It has nothing, very little to do with wanting. So, no,
Yeah.
you hit that note of authenticity. Uh, what did you learn through the writing process? So that is who you are here. This is your first book?
This is my first published book.
Published book.
I have a book in the drawer and then I have another book in progress.
Very, very common as well. By the way, everyone listening, kudos to you because sometimes what happens is the one in the drawer and the one by the the den, and they begin to sort of keep us from really being focused on finishing our task and getting
Yep,
this thing across the finish line.
that's
So
right.
if I had met you a year ago or 2 years ago, I probably would have been going, Liza, stay focused. Leave the drawer alone right now. But okay, so you got kind of one in the tank, one that's still working. What did you learn about you during the whole writing process?
Oh wow. What did I learn about me? Um, Gosh, I feel that I could answer that question on so many different levels, like on the level of just like the poetry. What I learned was that I guess I have this sort of highly ambitious hubris, right? Where I, for some reason, need to have a competition with William Shakespeare himself over who's the most awesome sonneteer, right? And so I like worked on those things to death. I wanted them to be awesome, right? I wanted them, I mean, Shakespeare was using his old-timey language. I wanted to make sonnets that were just as cool, but with modern language and modern slang. So that was one of the things I learned about myself. And then, of course, I learned about things in my love life. And every time I had new experiences, I would write about them in my poets, and in publishing the book, I'm hoping that some of those insights can be learned from, just like we always learn when we're reading memoirs.
Yeah, when you get a question like that, because I get them too. Really, it's like spinning a wheel. Is just where does it end up? Because there are so many answers to that question. For instance,
Mhm.
I could offer back to you that one thing that you learned was that you had the ability to take this writing project and finish it. Do you know how many people dream of writing a book, are in the process of writing a book, but never get it across the finish line? They get
You
discouraged,
know,
they lose
what
confidence in
really
others.
benefited me
What's that?
was deciding to make it 1 year. And I think I sort of stole that idea from A.J. Jacobs, who writes memoirs where he tries to do something unusual for 1 year. Like his most recent book is about trying to live like a person during the Revolutionary era for a year, right? And he sets that time limit. And that's what I ended up doing with my book. I mean, I didn't have that intention when I started, but when I got a certain of the way through, I was like, you know what? I'm going to write for a year. And I ended up calling the book Two Novembers because it goes from one November
Oh,
to the next November. And so that gave me a a sort of boundary in time and a way to stop,
right.
finish, and complete the book.
I think that's really smart. that just come to you one night and that was like a coconut hit you in the head? How did you find that? Because it's actually in hindsight, and I think you can see it, a very smart decision to make. As a first time author, most of us only get that one like the third time around. So,
Trust me, I
yeah,
made the mistake. I made that exact mistake with the first book I wrote, the one that's in my drawer. I
okay,
worked on it for 12 years.
okay,
And yeah, and I just could not finish it. And it made me a much stronger writer working on that book.
yeah.
And I'd like to go back to it one day. But yes, it is a problem, but it's also good if a person has, standards for their own work. Like they want it to be good and they don't want it to put it out in the world if they know it's not quite there. So it's always a balance, right? Like how can we get stuff out in the world? And then how can we also make sure that what we're putting into the world is really great?
Yep. And different days, we have different energy. And that's the tough part, because when we really put that parameter on ourselves, that's the good news. The bad news is now we have to deliver, and every day is a little bit different. I would think, particularly for a poet. I'm a business writer. I've had people come up to me, typically students who read my books in their college. They'll say, you seem to change your emotions a little bit. It's true. I some days I was in a better mood than others, but I could get away with it as a business writer. At least I thought so. But
Oh,
it's
you
tougher.
can feel it too. Yeah, no, for sure. As you go through and read my poems, you can see my mood shifting.
Uh-huh.
Certainly a little bit by the day, but also as my love life was changing, right? And
Mhm.
I had been married for 14 years, right? And I was, young middle-aged woman and sort of like entering this new world for the first time. I don't want to give away too much about the book, but there are, other men that I end up, you know, dating or whatever, and it's not only about my physical therapist. So truly, like there's a lot of different emotions, and that's good for a book of poetry if you have a lot of different
Yeah.
and then run the gamut of like happy and sad and a bunch of different things happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. I love this November to November thing. From your two Novembers, dial it down even tighter. Did you have a daily writing routine, a weekly writing routine? How did you process that?
So the main thing that you need to know about me is because of my arm injury, I do not really get to decide when I am able to use the computer. So I suffered the injury in 2015. And at the time that I was writing this book of poetry, I had taken a leave of absence from my job because I couldn't do it. I couldn't use the computer enough to do my job. And I was working on my first book that I told you is not published. And I finished it. I said, that's good enough. I can't do anymore. I put it away and I started writing the poetry. And at that time, as I said, I wasn't working, but also I had to use the computer a certain amount because in order to get my arm strength back up, I had to do a little bit every day, right? And my physical therapist gave me the schedule. And it's funny because in my book, Two Novembers, in the first like half of the year, time sort of passes more quickly because I'm able to write poems at a slower pace. And then as my arms heal and I'm able to write more poems, then suddenly like time is passing more slowly.
No.
Yeah, yeah. So the answer to your question is if my writing schedule says that now I need to, be on the computer, then that is when I kick my brain into gear.
Okay. That's interesting. Um, like sharing with you. See, you're a very open person. It's easy to share with you. I am much more regimented. I was a distance runner. I would look at the week and go, how are we getting our 35 miles in? So I look at that as a writer frequently, and it's just there's no right or wrong way here. It's just
No,
I'm
but
much
wrong,
more
wrong.
programmed, right? And I'm not being held back physically. So I will look at it in terms of how many, words or pages are we getting and where are we going to work those hours in? Because waiting till I feel like it could take a long time. So, so I'm a more process oriented guy that way.
It's so funny because I'm a distance runner too,
Mm.
and I've been listening to your podcasts, and you talk about running a lot,
Do I?
and it's very interesting because the way I create my computer schedule for my arms is the exact same way that I create my running schedule. Because as you cannot train all out without giving your body a rest
Right.
occasionally. So
Right.
it's always like, okay, let's do, 2 or 3 weeks of like really hard running, and then a week of not as much running to give my body a rest. And the same thing is true with my arms at the computer.
Yeah. Well, I'm already fascinated by the fact that I talk about running so much. I had no idea because I don't do that much running anymore, but it had
Uh,
obviously a huge impact on sort of the discipline that I approach projects with. I'm gonna have to stop mentioning it so much. I'm going to be more careful about my running,
oh
but
no.
I'm
Oh,
teasing you. Yeah.
as a runner, I'm like always excited to hear people talk about running.
I think it does shape the way we approach things because for
Yeah.
most runners, if we waited till we just felt like going on a long run, I don't know how many times a year that's going to happen. No, today is, 8 Mile Tuesday. That's what it's called, and that's where we're going. And it always feels good at mile 7, or when we're getting ready to finish this thing. What
Yeah.
about the challenging parts for you? What was the most, other than the physical part and kind of working within your body and your mind there together? What else was the most challenging for you about writing this book?
Well, I think that for me, the most challenging part was sort of like mental and dealing with the frustration related to the physical part. Because I have that sort of ambitious personality where I'm always go, 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 go. And I end up working so hard that I mess up my arms, but also like your brain can only concentrate on really difficult creative tasks for a certain number of hours a day.
Mhm.
And I had to really learn how to sort of recognize when to stop and take a rest and do something else, and how to deal with the frustration of really wanting to make it really good, but knowing that in order to do my best work, I had to give myself a rest. I could also answer your question by talking about how the sonnet form is a puzzle. But to me, that's like super fun, right? It's like, how do I fit all these syllables in to this iambic pentameter and get the rhyme
Right.
scheme? But that felt like more of a fun challenge than a hard challenge.
Well, what about for you? I'm not worried about you abandoning the book, but do you abandon certain sonnets? Are there ever some where you just go, it's not, this isn't fun anymore. It's not coming together.
That's interesting. No, I don't think I threw any sonnets away.
Ah,
I really don't think I did. Now, I definitely rewrote sonnets to the extent that there's no word left over from the original version, but I don't think I ever threw anything away.
well, kudos to you. My wife is an artist, okay, and occasionally she will sort of battle a piece and battle a piece, and she's a collage artist, so it sort of comes together in layers. So she can be on it for a month, and every now and then I hear her in there, and I know, uh-oh, we're getting ready to destroy a piece, and I beg her, and we work this out. Whenever she feels like that, call me. Let me grab it. It's like just grabbing, a small animal, okay, and getting it out of the art studio because there's a reason why we put the time and the effort into it. And although the sonnet or the art piece isn't coming together, I think the worst thing we can do is destroy it because it's there for a reason. And when we solve it, not if we solve it, it will be one of our favorite sonnets or our favorite pieces of artwork or our favorite chapter. But we got to be careful because sometimes there's a voice that says just toss it, not for you but for many people, and I think that's a clue to you're onto something really good. Do anything but toss it.
Yeah, I think that is super wise. And I love that you are an art support
Oh
person
yeah.
for her. That is awesome. Yes. And I love that you're so supportive of art of all kinds, right? Visual art
Oh yeah.
and writing art and all of this. Yes. Yes, indeed. I think that is so wise that if there was something in your subconscious, right, and it came out on the page and it's there, and you go back and you read it and you're like, oh, this is a piece of crap, right? This is terrible. the original sort of impulse wasn't terrible. You just need to work with those words and shape it right. And if you can shape it right, you can make whatever original impulse that was into what it was meant to be.
I so agree. And I also learned that in journaling. I'm a guy who journals.
Mm.
Not so much anymore because I don't travel so much anymore, but I used to travel and journal constantly, thousands of pages. And I always tell people when you're journaling, when you think you have nothing to say, get your hands on the keyboard because you'll probably love what you're about to write when it's over. And when you think you know what you're about to say, don't be disappointed because it may not be as creative or as exciting as you think. So it's almost the instinct versus logic. Our instinct is a little bit off on this one, but logically, I think we're in agreement that this is probably a challenging piece of art, which will make it a beautiful picture or, poem or sonnet. But our instinct is to run away from it. We should run towards it,
Mhm.
I think.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah, I agree.
let's talk about, we're coming down the home stretch with you. Let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, marketing the book. Okay. How long has the book been out?
It has been out for a year and a few months.
All right. So we good news for you and everybody is it's not 1993 anymore. A book can get hot at any time. Okay. So
Mm.
it really can. But there used to be, decades ago when I first started, you had a very small window kind of to hit. And if you don't hit it, it was a long shot. But okay, to me, that's still very fresh. What's your best marketing idea that you could throw out to somebody who's new at this, coming down, getting ready to publish their first book?
Well, I have a whole presentation
Oh,
about marketing your book. And I don't think, Rob, I don't think you were able to go to my
it
presentation at
wasn't. I
the
hustle
social.
out of there.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think that you might not be aware. So my presentation is called How to Generate a Buzz Promoting Your Book Launch. And this presentation is based on my incredible success in selling out my book multiple times. So it's a really funny story because 2 Novembers sold out before its publication date, which cracks me up because on the actual date of publication, people were not able to buy the book because it had sold completely out of its first print run.
Well,
And I'm incredibly proud. And then it
you
sold out
should be.
again a month and a half later. It sold out again a year after that. And it's currently selling through its fourth print run. I'm not going to lie and tell you that I've sold millions of books. Poetry is very difficult to sell, but I will say that I have exceeded my publisher's expectations multiple times over. So I wrote a whole presentation about how I did it. And what I found was there's very little information out there about how to do this when you're not published with a big five publisher and you're not self-publishing. There's a ton of books about those two things. But for people like me who are published by a small publisher, an independent publisher, I found that there wasn't a ton of information. So I did a ton of research. I learned a lot through my process and I put it into this presentation. Now, I will tell the audience if they would like to hear me do this presentation. I've done it already in Nashville and I did it near Baltimore. And I will be doing it again in two places. Both of these are virtual. And the first one's open to the public. It's with the Eastern Shore Writers Association. And the second one is with the Women's Fiction Writers Association. You do have to be a member of that association to
Both of them? You have
attend
to
that.
remember both those associations?
No, I think the Eastern Shore Writers Association, anyone can come. And if you go to their website, you can just register for free.
All right. If we were looking for that, and we Google Eastern Shore Writers
Eastern
Association.
Shore Writers Association.
Yeah.
Yes, if you Google it, and I'm trying to remember, it's in 2026. It's in spring, I believe, of 2026 that I will be delivering that presentation. But anyway, to answer your question, I'll just give you like one. I have a whole hour's presentation on this topic, but I'll answer it like just in
Can you
one
give me
small
one? I'll tell you, there's two ways to
way.
answer
Mhm.
this question. So I'm going to nudge
Okay.
you in one area if I could.
Okay.
There's the budget way and the I've got more money than I know what to do with way. We'll take more money than I know what to do with way and just simply say, go hire a publicist. Okay. If you've got $4,000 a month and maybe a 6 month campaign, that book will probably get some eyes on it. For most people, we don't have $30,000 or so to put into marketing. So I'm just sort of setting you up for more of one of your one or two best budget moves that we can
Yes.
make. Really a good bang for the buck.
Okay. So yes, trust me, I do not I did not have a huge budget.
Mhm.
So yes, these are budget tips. So my number one tip for how to sell a book is have an event and then send a personal email to every single person in your network who lives nearby. And I'm not talking about a mass email. I'm talking about a personalized email where you say something nice about them and ask them how their family is doing or whatever. And then you say, by the way, would you be interested in coming to my event? Then they come to the event and you speak with enthusiasm about your book, and people get excited and then they want to buy your book. So that's my advice.
All right. And may I add one of my pieces of advice?
Yes,
All right. Now
please.
you're interviewing me. Rob, what is that piece of advice? Well, thank you, Liza. Because you're asking. And I learned this multiple books in. So I want to tell you what you're going to look like at book 8. Okay. Um, you don't have to be apologetic to ask for somebody's help. So what Liza's telling you is listen, you get personal, they'll be there for you. But now that they're there for you, well, what do we need? Well, we'd love for them to be a champion of the book. We'd love for them to write a review on the book. And I'm not one that's big on giving books away at launches because I want a verified review on that book. But if we just use the words, I could use your help. I mean, it's a transition to rather than if you feel like it, but you don't have to. I mean, we stumble and bumble on really what we need to say, which is, Liza, I could really use your help. This book means a great deal to me, and it would be so helpful if you just gave me one or two sentences. And I actually have a how to write a book review document I'll put in somebody's hand to take out the objection. If I've never done one, what if I don't do this right? Well, here it is, link and all. But don't be afraid to ask because this is your tribe. They want to help, but they'll talk themselves out of those reviews if we don't go a little bit harder.
I agree with everything you just said.
Good, good. We'll do this presentation together sometime. All right, you. Last question. You got some people listening right now who are just sitting at that 1 yard line going, I don't know if I could do this, but I've always wanted to write a book. So many people in that category. What one piece of advice would you give them?
So my advice is think about your strengths and weaknesses. We all have them. And I think everyone likes to work on their strengths and capitalize on their strengths because you're good at it and it feels good. My advice would be don't forget to work on your weaknesses. And I think that we all have this sort of like idea in our heads that how we are right now is how it's always going to be, and that we can't really change our personalities and we can't change who we are. And I'm here to tell you that that's really not true. And as an example, much when I was much younger, I thought to myself, okay, I have a really great strength in, say, grammar, right? But I knew I had a really big weakness in public speaking and networking. And I just thought to myself, well, I'll be a writer, but I won't speak in public. I won't network. I won't talk to people. I'm just going to write. And what I sort of learned is that you have to do those things if you want to sell books. If you're not already famous, you have to do those things. And I worked really, really hard at it. And now look at me, I'm giving presentations, I'm networking, I'm doing all those things. So that is my advice. If you have something that you feel like you're not very good at, you can get better.
Yeah, that's so well said. I used to coach a lot of basketball teams, and I would refer to that as 'cause a lot of people are right-handed, learning to go to your left. Okay, because you can get really great at going to your right, but it's fairly easy to defend, and everybody can do that. If you want to go from good to great, you have to go to that offhand. And what you've just described, in a sense, is going to the offhand. I really love writing, and you're not alone, by the way. I think 95%, and I'm probably conservative, people really don't want to get mixed up in the marketing end of this. And
Yeah,
yet, that's the equivalent of starting to learn how to use your left hand because now
yeah,
you're going to be a great basketball player, not a good basketball
yes,
player. Um,
yes.
so, yeah, I think you nailed it. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, maybe, but we've never done this on the show before, but maybe at some point, if I can twist your arm again, maybe we'll do a show simply on marketing. Okay.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
and
I
we'll
would love
just,
to.
yeah, we'll just because we have an audience for it. And for anyone listening is going, oh no, not marketing. That's exactly who we're talking to. You show up for that podcast. But I think we need a good marketing podcast here because these books are like our children and we want to give them the best opportunity to be successful. They'll
Yeah.
live on their own, but let's give them the best shot we can. And that comes from experts like you. So thank you so much for being on the show. How do people get a hold of you?
Yes, I have a website. It is lizaachilles.com. That's my name, all one word. I have sort of a difficult name. My first name is Liza. If anyone knows the famous, actress and singer Liza Minnelli, it's spelled just like that, Liza. My last name is Achilles, which is just like the Achilles tendon or the Greek mythological hero Achilles. So if you go to lizaachilles.com, there will be a little pop-up and it'll say, would you like to subscribe to the blog for the discerning reader, where I write about the best modern books? And you can get a free gift, which is the 20 best books in the past 10 years. So if you want to know what's going on right now in the publishing industry, as far as best fiction, best nonfiction out there, head over to my blog at lizaachilles.com.
Perfect. And what you just did was you just showed us you walk the walk and talk the talk, because that's how we market, folks. We have lead magnets. We have what we call in the sales world WIFMs, which is WIFM. What's in it for me? So
Yeah.
you'll get that top 20. Okay, that's the way we do it. And I would suggest you go over there for a couple reasons. Take advantage of that and also learn how an author is marketing her book, because that's a step above I have a website. Next question. Okay, there's a little bit more to it. So let's look at that. Anyway, you have been a delight. I predicted you'd be good when I met you, and you exceeded my expectations. So wonderful having you on the show, and nothing but success. And we'll talk about that marketing idea. Okay?
That sounds great. And I love this podcast. I have listened to so many awesome episodes on this podcast. So thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you for saying that, because we will do it again as well as we can next time. Until then, everybody, stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's guest author, we'd love you to rate, review, and share this episode with others. If you'd like more information on today's guest or the Maryland Writers Association, please visit our website at marylandwriters.org. You can also hear a brief history of the Maryland Writers Association by listening to episode 0.